Okay, today we're going to look at the synthesis essay on the English 3 AP exam. Those of you that have taken World History AP or in U.S. History AP are familiar with the DBQ. The DBQ stands for Document-Based Question. Synthesis essay is the same thing as the DBQ. You have to use sources or documents to answer the questions. They'll give you a series of sources. Each of the sources is a lecture, a nonfiction article from a book, a newspaper article, magazine, etc. What the College Board wants to know is that can you take these sources and incorporate quotations and points of view to support your own argument. So today we're going to look at analyzing the prompt. So the first paragraph is usually some background information. And what we want to do as we read through these paragraphs is to underline or circle vocabulary words we may not know. Since we're practicing, we can use a dictionary to find the definitions. However, on the actual test, we will not be able to do that. So the need to memorialize events or people is complex. In some cases, monuments honor moments of great achievement, while in other cases, monuments pay homage to deep sacrifice. A monument's size, location, and materials are all considerations in planning and creating a memorial to the past. So the second paragraph is our prompt. This was background information. Read the following 7 sources carefully, including the introductory information for each source. Then in a well-organized essay that synthesizes at least 3 of the sources for support, examine the factors a group or agency should consider in memorializing an event or person and in creating a monument. So there's a couple of different tasks we need to do here. First of all, we need to read. And we need to include the introductory information. So where are the articles coming from? They give us that information. We need to create a well-organized essay that synthesizes or blends together at least 3 of the sources with our own argument. The things that we got to look for here are examine the factors a group or agency should consider in memorializing an event or person, and we also need to know the factors in creating that monument. So there's several different tasks that we need to accomplish here. The third paragraph gives us our final instructions. Make sure your argument is central. Use the sources to illustrate and support your reasoning. So what this means is that my argument needs to be important. I need to argue my point of view. And the sources are merely going to support my point of view. I'm going to avoid merely summarizing the sources. I do not want to make a list of the sources. I don't want to just sort of summarize each of the sources and talk about what those authors thought, because they're supposed to support my point of view. Indicate clearly which sources you're drawing from, whether through direct quotation, paraphrase, or summary. You may cite the sources as source A, source B, etc., or by using the descriptions in the parentheses. We call this internal documentation. And they, in fact, give us the way that we can do our internal documentation by giving us the author's name, or simply we could use source A, B, C, or D. So there's no excuse for not using our internal documentation. Okay, no one realized that I misspelled that word except for me, so documentation is now spelled correctly. Now what we want to do on this half sheet is sort of begin our pre-writing. Remember, there's 2 things that we need to do, 2 types of factors we need to look for. And remember, our first step was to actually read the sources. So source A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. What we need to look for are, first of all, the factors in memorializing an event or person. So what do we need to know when we consider to honor an event or person. So as we read these sources, I want you to write down one or two things that talks about an event or person. The second factor was, or the second thing we need to look for, the factors in actually creating the monument. Now, not all of these sources may talk about both of these, but we at least want to read and look for these factors. Step 3 on our prompt was to examine the factors. So after we have this list complete, what we want to do is choose maybe 3 or 4 that we think are the most important. It could be more if you want, before we actually start our thesis statement, which was what we'll work on tomorrow in class. Okay, so just to summarize, we want to make sure that these words are defined, the ones we may not understand. We want to list all of the factors for deciding whether to memorialize an event or person or monument from these sources, and we want to choose 3 or 4 that we think that you could argue successfully. And remember, these sources are merely going to support your argument, so choose ones that you believe in or that you feel like you can write more about. Okay, so all of this needs to be filled out.